So welcome to Unique Digital Academy. I am Anurag Das. Today we will discuss determinants of demand. आज आम डिस्कसन करिबा except price, what are the other factors that affects the demand for a product? Price व्यतीत अन्य को सब फैक्टर गोटे कमोडिटी रो डिमांड को अफेक्ट करती. So last class we had already discussed your law of demand. It states that other things remaining constant, there exists an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded of a product. It means that when price of a product increases, the demand for that product declines, and when the price of a product declines, the demand for that product increases. So, the demand line or the demand curve is sloping downwards from left to right. So, before discussion, today's motivational quote: there is no substitute for hard work. Determinants of demand. The demand for a commodity is governed by several factors like price of commodity, income of the consumer, price of related goods, taste and preferences of the consumers. Apart from that, climatic conditions, government policies and populations that also affect the demand for a product. So, change in demand occurs when any one of the above factors, that your price of the commodity, income of the consumer, price of related goods, taste and preferences, climatic conditions, government policy, population growth, or your population undergoes a change. To know the influence of any one factor, we have to keep all other factors remains constant. It means that when we examine the relationship between income and demand for a product, all other factors like your price of related goods, taste and preferences, population, government policy, that remains constant. Because here we examine the relationship with that relationship between demand and one of the above factors. Okay. So, in symbolically it can be represented as demand for commodity X is the function of price of commodity X, income of the consumer, price of substitute goods, price of complementary goods, taste and preferences, population and government policy. So, how these factors affects the demand for a product? Okay. So, your first one, that income of the consumer. So, when income of an individual increases, his or her consumption expenditure also increases, and when the income of an individual declines, his or her consumption expenditure also declines. So, the price of good remaining unchanged or constant, if consumers income changes, means either income increases or income declines, then the demand for good also undergoes a changes. Means when your income increases, your demand for the commodity increases, and when your income declines, your demand for the commodity also declines. Then taste and preference. Suppose Sprite is my favorite cool drinks. So, whatever the price of Sprite, or either the price of Sprite increases or declines in the market. I am interested for Sprite only because Sprite is my favorite cold drinks. Okay. Oh, wait, cut habo. Tu cut habo. हेलो मझिरे गोटे पळे आसले हो ना करिवे ना देखिए इट कट हो टाइम रखो हाँ इट काटी दबा ना हसीबेनी और ना आपण करिवे करू ना ये चल ना हस बारी बड़े मैडम को देखिए हाँ ना ना मैडम कर दियो
कर देखिला परे करिवे
ओहो ताले एटा डेमो ताले एटा डेमो हां कर हम काट दो So when income of an individual increases, his demand for a commodity increases, and when the income of an individual declines, his or her demand for a commodity declines. So except price, income also affect the demand for a product. Next, taste and preference. So suppose chicken is my favorite food. So whatever the price of chicken, I am interested to purchase chicken. So my taste and preference also affect the demand for a product. So taste and preference of the consumer also affects demand for a commodity. Next, price of related goods. Your related good means substitute goods and complementary goods. Tea and coffee both are substitute goods. So when price of tea increases, the demand for coffee increases, and the people substitute coffee in place of tea because tea and coffee both are substitute goods. Another one is your complements, car and petrol. So the demand for one good also affects the demand for another good. Bread and butter, these are the complementary goods. Pen and ink, these are the complementary goods. It means that if the price of car declines in the market, the demand for car increases, and at the same time the demand for petrol also increases. So this is your complements. The demand for one good leads to the demand for another good. So that also affects the demand for a product except price. Population. The size, composition and growth of a population in a country affects the overall demand for various goods and services. For example, if the number of children increases, then the demand for baby product also increases. If the number of old age persons increases, then the demand for medicines also increases. So the size, compositions, because man must eat to live. So the size, composition and growth of a population in a country affects the overall demand for various goods and services. Then climatic conditions, for examples, in winter season the demand for cold drinks declines. Even if the price of cold drinks declines, the demand for cold drinks also declines. Similarly, in summer season, so the size, composition and growth of a population in a country affects the overall demand for various goods and services. For example, If the number of children increases, then the demand for baby product increases, and if the number of old age persons increases, then the demand for medicines also increases. Then climatic conditions or climate. For example, in winter season, if the price of cold drinks declines, the demand for cold drinks also declines. And if in summer season, if the price of cold drinks increases, the demand for cold drinks also increases. So, climatic conditions also affects the demand for a product. Then state of economic activities, for example, your inflation, deflation, recession, depressions, that also affects the demand for a product. Inflation, sudden rise in the price of a product over a long period of time. And inflation, that shows that people have sufficient money income, so that demand for goods and services increases. Depression, recession, all the sectors are closed. So, people have less income, and at that time the demand for goods and services declines. Next, distribution of income, that regressive taxation system, that also affects the distribution of income in our country. And your political influence or political interference, because in our country government always formulate policies or distribute income in favor of rich class and neglect the interest of poor class. So, that make the rich to become richer and the poor to become poorer. So, that also affects the demand for a product. Then taxation policy. Tax is a compulsory contribution to the government without expecting any direct benefit. Then different types of taxes: direct tax, indirect tax, progressive tax, regressive tax, degressive tax, proportional tax, that also affects the demand for a product. For example, income tax. Tax on your income. Corporation tax, tax on profit of any organization. Wealth tax, tax on asset, wealth or property. And after paying the direct taxes, the rest amount of income is known as personal disposable income. Suppose your personal disposable income is equal to your personal income minus direct taxes. Suppose your income tax increases, your personal disposable income declines, and immediately your demand for goods and services also declines. Your personal disposable income, that shows your purchasing power, that shows your demand for a product. If tax rate declines, your personal disposable income increases, and if your tax rate increases, your personal disposable income declines. So, these are the factors that affects the demand for a product. It means that except price, what are the other factors that affects the demand for a product? So, the other factors are income, taste and preference, climatic conditions, population, government policy, taxation. These are the other factors, and the price of substitute and the price of complementary goods. So, these are the factors that also affects the demand for a product. Okay. So, thank you.